Good afternoon and welcome to this second United Way at Queen's speaker series. Very pleased you're able to join us this afternoon. Even though we're meeting today from many different locations through Zoom, let us acknowledge, as we usually do, that Queen's is situated on traditional Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territory. We're grateful to be able to live, to work and play on these lands. To acknowledge this traditional territory is to recognize its longer history, one predating the establishment of the earliest European colonies. It is also to acknowledge this territory's significance for the indigenous peoples who lived and continue to live upon it, and whose practices and spiritualities were tied to the land and continue to develop in relationship to the territory and its other inhabitants today. Today, you'll hear from some United Way agency partners about how your donations through our campaign are helping them to address some of the very critical needs in our communities right now. Specifically today, in how they're helping people who've been a victim of human trafficking, which is a very serious and alarming problem right here in Kingston. This is the second of two speaker events that we have held during the campaign. Last week, we heard from agencies working with people living with mental health challenges and homelessness. And a recording of that session is available if you're interested to see it or to watch it again. These events have been offered to help everyone learn about the work that is done in our community and in particular about the needs that exist, particularly those that have been exacerbated during the pandemic and that affect the most vulnerable people in our community. A big part of our United Way campaign at Queen's is about awareness, about increasing awareness of these issues and of the truly incredible work that is being done by the United Way and its partner agencies. It certainly is inspiring, and I hope you will leave today feeling as if you know a little more about what is happening in your community and inspired to help contribute to the campaign and to this work. So now I'd like to introduce our discussion moderator for today, Pavna Varma, who is the CEO and President of the United Way of Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox and Addington, who will share some information about our topic and also about our panelists today. Pavna.
Thanks, Patrick. Firstly, thank you everyone who's taken time to join this session. And thank you to all the employees, faculty, the staff, students, and retirees of Queen's University. You do an incredible job, and we could not do the work that we do without your support. So thank you very much for all that you do, donating through the United Way, volunteering, supporting agencies in our community. It's very much appreciated. Today's topic is a tough one, and I will start with saying that if this topic upsets or disturbs you, please feel free to reach out to me. We'll put my email in the box and we can refer you to some of our agencies who can help you, because it is a disturbing topic. When we first heard about trafficking in Kingston, it was certainly something that we were totally taken aback and shocked and surprised. And as we learned more from our agencies about what's happening, the work that's being done, how agencies are coming together, it was heartwarming to see the response, but it is still disturbing to think that there are so many young people in our community who are going through these experiences, and we're so grateful to all the agencies who wrap around them and give them supports when they are able to. So we're going to start with a video of a very brave young woman. I've had the privilege and pleasure of meeting Alexis, and she has turned her life around. She is such an inspiration to all of us. She is a longtime volunteer with the United Way now, and she is out in BC, so she couldn't be here today, but we will play the video so you'll get a sense of how your support has helped many lives, including Alexis.
I was in high school. I ended up getting mixed into the wrong crowd and decided to start trying some substances that I probably would not have tried had I stayed friends with the people I went into high school with. However, come grade I don't know, partway through grade 10, almost grade 11, I ended up starting to go out to the bars and partying with my friends. And I met a group of guys at one of the bars there in Kingston who decided to take advantage of my vulnerabilities, and they ended up human trafficking me. And that is probably one of the hardest things I have had to overcome, and I still struggle with things to this day. But having people at Youth Diversion like Dave, who were able to connect me with resources like SAC, the Sexual Assault Center Kingston, and connect me with some different liaisons at Kingston Police, was really beneficial and very crucial in getting me to where I am today. Having Dave be there to support me through all of that and make sure that I knew I had a shoulder to lean on when I needed some help was great. And it was probably the most life-changing thing that I have ever been through, was having somebody to support me through that. I am out of school right now, so I actually work in Kingston. I ended up working for the same school board that kicked me out, expelled me, and then I picked up and moved across the country, and now I have a job as a child and youth worker at a school in British Columbia, and I'm channeling my inner Dave every single day because I want to be able to reach kids the way that he reached me in my youth, and I want to be able to make a difference like he made a difference in my life. And I want kids to know that there's always somebody rooting for them, and that they always have somebody on their team, whether they see that or feel that or not. Or to think of where I would be today had I not had support from local agencies that United Way supports. I would probably be addicted to drugs. I have no idea where I would be. Human trafficking is a very scary, scary thing. And, you know, some people get taken from their hometown. Other people, you know, never show back up. They just disappear. So thinking about where I would be today had I not had some intervention with Youth Diversion is very scary. And it's not something I think about very often, because I know it would not be in a good place wherever I did end up. I know I certainly would not be as stable and happy as I am now. It would have been very bad, very, very bad. Every person deserves to have the same opportunities as everyone else in their community. And the United Way is striving to give everybody the same opportunities, to support everybody so they can have all the same chances in life to be the best person that they could be. And I think that when you think of it that way, it's kind of like a no-brainer. You want to help people so they can help you. And I think back to myself going through high school and struggling with my addiction and being human trafficked, and I had been kicked out of my house, and my parents weren't speaking to me, and I barely had any friends. I had United Way supporting agencies. And if it wasn't for those agencies, I don't know what my life would look like. So if you maybe take some of my struggles and think about that versus some of your loved one's life, should be enough to want to donate.
I still feel very emotional when I hear Alexis. We do have the opportunity to chat every once in a while. But to think of Alexis, she actually grew up in the neighborhood that I live in. She went to Bay Ridge High School, which is just around the corner from where I live. So these are people amongst us who are in very difficult, vulnerable circumstances. And it's our agencies that come together. And when our agencies wrap around people, it's not just about their agency. They link up with so many different agencies, as you heard from Alexis. And that's the beauty of a network of care that the United Way provides through your support. With us today, we're very privileged to have Lana Saunders, who does some very difficult work in our community. She is the coordinator of the anti-human trafficking group that works together to prevent, to educate, to increase awareness. And I'm going to hand it over to Lana to tell you a little bit more about the issue. And as Mary Beth has put in the chat, feel free to add your questions at the end of the session. We will open it up for questions and answers. So Lana?
Thank you, Pavna, sorry. And thanks everyone for having me. As Pavna said, I work in the area of anti-human trafficking, and I'm actually employed by Victim Services of Kingston and Frontenac as the anti-human trafficking crisis worker for this service. And for those who don't know what we at Victim Services do, we're funded by the Ministry of the Attorney General, and we help victims of crime and tragic circumstance. In my area, like I said, of specialty is anti-human trafficking. I was brought on to the service in 2017 to work specifically in this role. And since that time, I have had the pleasure and opportunity to work with Kingston Police very closely on some of their anti-human trafficking initiatives. So education and awareness through the community, our hotels and motels and local school boards specifically for the high school. So that's been great to get the word out for education and awareness. I myself do work specifically with victims and survivors of human trafficking. I can work with anyone who has been trafficked, who's currently being trafficked, and my role over the years has actually broadened to working with youth at risk. And so how I become involved with someone, it's I work based off of a referral system, and I take referrals from any local agency or service within the community and even outside of the community. And I also take self-referrals and referrals from family members. So that's how I come in contact with my clients. Pavna did say that I am now co-chairing the Kingston and Frontenac anti-human trafficking working group, and it was originally, I think we started about 3-4 years ago with Kim Graham and Lisa Fox from Innerfield House chairing, and I have stepped into that role. We have recently received funding from the United Way grant funding, and we're very, very thankful for that, because we are a group of community agencies working in anti-human trafficking, and this funding, the $25,000 that we received, is going directly to our local protocol. So a KFLNA anti-human trafficking protocol. And what we're going to do with that money and the protocol is we're having all of our community agencies and partners come together so we can build that network of care and have a plan for victims and survivors when they come forward. So we have best ways to support them. Okay, some of the agencies that we work with are hospital, the Sexual Assault Center, Kingston Interval House, Kingston Police, OPP, RCMP, Victim Services, the Youth Shelter, any agency that may come in contact with a victim or survivor of human trafficking. So we want to build that circle of care. So we have the best possible methods in place to help them deal with the trauma of their circumstance. Okay, sorry, where am I at? We do know that the needs of survivors are very complex, and no one's particular case is the exact same as the next person. So that's why it's very important to have lots of options in place. So this group, I'm really proud to be a part of, because that's what our whole intent is, right? To help the community, to help survivors and victims. Going back to the victim service role that I play or I work in, I do work with youth at risk, survivors and victims, and there is funding from the ministry for certain things for survivors or victims. So we can tap into some funding and help by way of providing maybe temporary accommodation or basic necessities or a cell phone or replacing government documents. Whatever that person may need, we try and fill that need with some funding through the ministry. But again, it's all criteria based, and we depend also on agencies, on donations as well, right? Because not everything fits cookie cutter, and like I said, the needs of these victims are very complex.
So Lana, can you tell us, a lot of us assume that the people who are being trafficked, the young people who are being trafficked, are from international places, or they are, you know, like they just come into our community. Do you want to talk about who you work with mostly, their age, where they come from?
Absolutely. My clients they vary in age, actually. I've worked with, and I will use the term girls, just for ease of execution for the presentation, because most of my clients have been female, but we all know that there are male victims as well. But they have ranged in age, I want to say, from about 12 all the way to late 40s. Right. So, but predominantly what I'm finding is the 14 to 18 age range is the bulk of my clientele.
And are they from Kingston? Are they from out of town?
Well, obviously, because I am Kingston based, the people that I'm working with are local girls, and these are girls who could be born here, raised here, trafficked right in our own backyards. Like, this is happening in Kingston. We do know that sometimes they leave the city and go to larger cities or other cities like Ottawa, Toronto, Quebec. But like I said, they're all so very different, each one, and their story and what they've been through. Yeah. It varies, but we do know that there are local girls being trafficked right here in Kingston. And some of them could be going to school at one of our local high schools and being trafficked in the evening or on the weekend.
Yeah. And so tell me, I think when you and I had spoken at one time, you were talking about how you build a relationship, you meet in coffee shops till they're ready to leave, or sometimes you come into a crisis situation. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So one of the misconceptions about the role that I have is that people have to report to the police, or they have to work with police to work with me, because our offices are in Kingston Police Headquarters, but that, I just want to stress, is not the case. Victims are very apprehensive about disclosing to police for a variety of different reasons. So I work within the community, and I will meet victims, you know, where they're comfortable in their own space. So if it happens to be a Tim Hortons or a McDonald's or a city park, I will meet them wherever they're at, because it's really all about them and their comfort level, and the rapport building, right? These are girls who have been taken advantage of. They could have been, well, they've been sexually abused and raped over and over again. Their trust of people is very low, and their trust of authority is very low too. So that's why I prefer to meet them where they're at.
Thank you. I know the work you do is so challenging. We just so appreciate that you're there. We'll come back to you in a moment with questions. But I just want to turn it over to Kim Graham, who works with the Sexual Assault Center. And I know you work closely with a number of agencies, but maybe you can tell us about the post once someone has decided to take the step to come back into the community.
Sure. So we at SAC Kingston have certainly seen folks who have been trafficked as long as I've been here. So I've been here 13 years. I think, you know, it's something that we are really just sort of identifying and starting to really talk about, which is great, to be able to provide those supports in the community. So here at the center, when someone presents and they're looking for counseling, there's sort of two different streams of counseling that we can provide. So the skills and support, which is that safety and stabilization, which a lot of folks who've experienced trafficking are looking for, that piece that is flashbacks, nightmares, triggers. That's that managing those really important pieces of your daily life that you kind of need to get under control in order to really begin trauma processing. So once clients can go through that stage, then they're welcome to join us for trauma processing, which is our Reflect and Connect program. The trauma processing program of our center, you know, I would say average 6 months, but up to a year. There is no time limit. We know that folks who've experienced you know, trauma such as HT, as Lana said, is very complex and comes with a lot of need for trust building. Even going, sometimes clients will find they are at that trauma processing, and then we have to go back to that safety and stabilization just because of their past experiences and their really harmful trauma that they've experienced. We're lucky that the United Way funds a rapid access program for youth. So as Lana mentioned, a lot of our HT, I would say the bulk of clients that have experienced HT recently would be between 14 and 18. So United Way provides a rapid access program for high school aged youth. They don't have to be in high school, just high school aged. And they're able to get access to that skills and support program within, they can get an intake, usually I would say it's within 2 days or so, and they're moved right to the top of a wait list. We're actually quite lucky right now because of United Way that we don't even have a wait list at all at the moment for that skills and support program. So that's been really beneficial because we know that youth, you know, when they're disclosing, when they're ready to talk about their experience, we can't wait. Like, it's not a time that we can wait and put them on a list. We have to act now. So that's been really fortunate for us that we're able to address those needs as they come up quickly and appropriately as well. As sort of Lana mentioned, we started this working group a few years ago, and we had been looking for funding and had applied for funding at a variety of different things many times. And we were so grateful this past year to get the funding from United Way for the protocol. I can't tell you how excited I am to see this protocol come to fruition, to see the ease of accessing services for these you know, survivors of human trafficking, and just the collaboration that the community will have once this protocol is finished.
Sorry, thanks, Kim. I have a question for both of you, actually. And it's a question that comes up a lot. How are girls targeted, and what should someone look for as signs that someone is being trafficked? And I know that's a lot of what your awareness programs are about.
Okay. I guess I'll speak to that, Kim, initially anyway. Well, the signs are different based on how you're coming in contact with the victim, right? So the signs for somebody working at a local hotel in the front desk is going to be very different than a parent or a school official. But we're looking for changes in behavior, okay? So somebody who is becoming more isolated or may have a new social circle and being more secretive, if their drug or alcohol use is increasing, if you're seeing new clothing or purses or hair and nails done, or cash. Cash is a big one. If you're seeing these things show up all of a sudden, and the young girl, she doesn't have a job or any means on her own to provide these for herself, those are serious red flags for parents and school officials. Truancy from school, losing interest in activities like sports related, and these are for younger girls, obviously girls in high school, but yeah, isolating themselves from family, becoming secretive, maybe rapid weight loss. Those are all things. Unexpected absences. Where have you been in the last 4 hours? You know, which could start that way, being gone for an hour or two, and then end up, you know, an overnight or a weekend being gone. So these unexplained absences are huge as well. So those are some of the signs for like maybe a parent or a school official, for sure.
Yeah. Kim,
Red flags.
Yeah.
Yeah, I echo anything that is really out of the ordinary behavior. And I know for teenagers that can change quickly, but you just have to trust your gut. I think as a parent or someone who's working with youth, if it seems odd, it probably is odd, and it's worth investigating. In regards to how people are recruited, it's a variety of different ways. As Alexis has mentioned, it was just wrong people. We're seeing a lot of social media accessing through that. It's a lot of like the perpetrators particularly target certain people, and they do that well. So it's, we talk about online safety, but it's not just online safety, right? There is actual physical sort of face-to-face connections that are made as well.
And what should someone do if they see these signs? Who should they reach out to?
Well, I mean, the signs we're talking about that I've mentioned, like it's not just one or two, it's when they start adding up, and then like Kim said, it's that feeling like something's not right, like the feeling in the pit of your stomach. But I think that with the education and awareness that's being done in Kingston, a lot more people are aware of this situation. So, I mean, you could ask literally anyone. If you're a parent, you might want to bring it up to an adolescent care worker at the school or their teacher to see if maybe they've noticed something out of character as well. You could certainly, victim services, I mean, ask, call our office, ask, but it's better to say something than nothing at all. Right? It's better to be aware and try and work on the preventative and nip it in the bud rather than let it go on, right?
Yeah, and I know Alexis has told us that Dave, even though she was going to school not to study, she was going there just to meet her counselor Dave because she trusted him. And for the longest time, she's told us she didn't think she was being trafficked. It was only one day she had that aha moment after many, many months of meeting Dave regularly that she realized what was happening, and that's when she made the decision. But I'm sure that happens differently. Yeah.
And I think for parents, it's having that open line of communication with your child, right? When I meet a client, being non-judgmental and open is very, very important, right? Because that's how you build that rapport and the communication. And so for a parent, that's important as well. I know you want to parent, but you also want to be, one of those people that they feel safe with and that they can trust, right? And they will come to you. And that's kind of like a fine balance thing, but being approachable. Right?
And having those conversations about what healthy relationships look like, what consent looks like early on. A lot of young girls, their perpetrator is their boyfriend in the beginning, right? That's most often how it happens. And so being able to have those conversations and talk about healthy relationships and what is okay and what's not okay, and it's okay to say no, and it's okay to not be with someone if it doesn't feel right. Like having those conversations with your kids is, I think, really important as well, early on too, right?
Yeah. And we're just going to open it up for questions, but I just wanted to add, one of the things I learned from you, Lana, was that you're looking for things to support these mostly girls, but things like gift cards for Tim Hortons, for McDonald's, for some of the chains, because that helps them. Many of them are hungry, you mentioned. Clothing. Do you want to tell us the sizes and some of the other things that people can donate?
Well, it is getting colder, and we are in need of clothing. We're looking for small size underwear, small, medium underwear, pants, maybe jogging pants, tights, coats would be nice. And we're actually getting low on toiletry items as well. So when I meet, we do have a program that we can tap into, but we're getting very low right now, I'll be quite honest. So if I'm called to, let's say, the hospital because somebody presents there and they arrive with nothing, and they may have come from a situation where they truly have nothing, it goes a long way if I can, you know, when they call me to hospital, if I can arrive with a backpack with some essential items for them. And again, it goes to building that trust and rapport, because the girls that I've come in contact with, very, very few are ready to disclose in the moment. And like Kim said, a lot of them may not even realize, like, hey, this is really wrong and I'm being trafficked. Because sometimes, and again, as Kim has said, it's their boyfriend or somebody that they trust, and they believe that, you know, they would never do that to me. That's not, so to them, in the moment, they're not a victim. And a lot of them, even if they enter into it and do a few things voluntarily to try and please that boyfriend or partner, then I'm opening a whole other can of worms, but then the shame and the guilt, and then they don't want to speak up. But it's not apparent to many of them for quite some time that you know what, this is not your fault, you're not to blame, you are a victim. So if I meet them, if it's a one or two, like the first couple of contacts, they may, like, I don't even try and broach it like bluntly, because oftentimes they'll shut you down. They don't want to hear that. They're not a victim. But just building the rapport, hey, do you need something? I can help you. So sometimes, you know, if it's clothing, or like you said, Pavna, a gift card to McDonald's or Tim Hortons, they could be hungry. I mean, they will remember that they met, you know, Lana, and Lana gave them something and didn't ask for anything in return. So, right, at the point where they may be ready to talk more or receive more help, that's when I'm hoping that the positive interaction that I've had from them will cause them to, you know, reach out in the future.
Great. We have a question. It's how does trafficked mean the girl is involved with multiple people, or could it be with one person? And they've got given a situation where a 21-year-old has moved to town to live with a much older boyfriend, no job, and this person has concerns about her safety. This person is trying to build trust with her and worry that naming it as human trafficking could scare her off. Are there any recommendations?
Okay, well, there is a bit of a difference between like the sexual exploitation and the human trafficking. When we're talking about commercial sex trafficking, it is somebody who is, you know, being with multiple people, and their pimp or their trafficker is the one benefiting from that interaction, right?
And how would someone bring up the topic if they feel that human trafficking, the words would frighten them off?
I mean, you could always say, do you feel as though you're being forced into something that you wouldn't choose to do on your own, right? So the 5 ways, like force, manipulation, coercion, deception, those are often ways that they are tricked or lured or brought into that lifestyle.
I think you can also just show genuine concern and just say, sometimes like, it's better to not ask them questions, but to say, you know, I'm scared for you, right? That's really acknowledging that you've noticed something. They don't have to answer any questions. I always say disclosure is a process, not an event. So if you can just open up the doors a little bit, that you've noticed something, that you're scared for them or you're concerned for them, then you've sort of created a little bridge that if they're ready to disclose to you, they'll come to you. Yeah.
Thank you. There's another question. Who are the traffickers targeting? Is there a particular type or vulnerability that they look for?
I was waiting for you.
Yeah, I was waiting for you. Really, I don't know if there's a particular type they're looking for, but they're looking for somebody who's going to buy what they're selling, who's going to fall prey to this, who's vulnerable, right? And that age group, the adolescent age group, they're very vulnerable for a lot of different reasons. But I think, you know, coming to age and the self-esteem and wanting to be loved and accepted, those are all key reasons why somebody may fall prey, right? And then if they're down on their luck, or any little thing could make them even more susceptible. So age, maybe it's economic, their situation, right?
Yeah.
If they've been abused in the home and they're looking for that love and attention elsewhere, sometimes these girls just don't even realize what is out there and what they're getting into, right? And they are looking for an exciting experience, becoming more independent and wanting to hang out with peers. And it can look like a really fun time initially. And then before you know it, it's just gotten into something much larger than what they were.
Yeah. And statistically, we know that, you know, Indigenous young women, racialized young women are more likely to become victims of human trafficking. So we do know that.
Well, I think we're almost out of time, but thank you so much to both of you for all the work you do, not just for coming out today. I really appreciate you coming and sharing this, but all the work you do every single day to help people in our community. So thank you. Patrick, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Pavna. I want to say thank you very much, Lana and Kim, for this. Could I ask a question before I wind things up? It may seem a dense question, because I think you've answered in your comments this in one way or another, but I was interested in your sense of the magnitude of the problem in our community. So, you know, when you say that often young women don't know they're victims of trafficking until they reach a certain point, and so that obviously means it's very difficult to gauge this, right? But just, you know, as we think about the needs in our community, the kinds of support that you need to do your really, really important work, what's the scale of this? Can you estimate it?
Well, speaking from my position, it's huge, right? But it also depends on disclosure. Yeah. And it's something that people are really hesitant in disclosing, right? So the problem is much larger than what I'm seeing. And I also want to say, like, I'm just one person. We have a lot of local agencies like the Sexual Assault Center, Interval House, hospital, police. So I'm only one person. Other people are having interactions with other victims as well, right? And I do want to say, because I don't think I made it clear earlier on, that I don't keep my clients to myself, right? Because I'm not an expert in all areas. I will refer out to the Sexual Assault Center so they can get that trauma counseling that they really, really need. So my job is to build the rapport, yes, help them in any way I can, but one of the main ways that I can help is by referring to other services that specialize in other areas like housing, counseling, those types of supports, right? So, but in answer to your immediate question, I think the problem is huge, and I think a lot of these victims are presenting not only with victim services, but the Sexual Assault Center, they're coming to Interval House, they're showing up at the hospital. So yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. And just because of the disclosure piece, a lot of folks don't even recognize that what they've experienced is trafficking. And so, you know, how do you capture that? It's almost impossible, but it is much bigger than I think people are aware of. Yeah.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Lana. I think, you know, shocking to think of this in our community on that kind of scale, but so important for us to hear about the work you do, and thanks very much. I should also say I found Alexis's video unbelievably moving. What an extraordinary example of someone struggling to come through a very, very difficult phase in their life, but she's an inspiration. So very good to hear from her in the context of your reflections on the work you do. So thanks very much, everyone. And thanks, Pavna, again, for moderating this and for all the work that you do at the United Way. I'll close by just letting everyone know about our campaign. The Queen's community is very generous. We're a leader within the overall United Way campaign. This year, we have a goal of $425,000, which is just over 10% of the entire community campaign goal. And I'm really pleased to report that we're making great progress on that campaign. We've raised, in fact, just over 72% of our projected total so far, which is wonderful news, I must say. We're the largest workplace and retiree campaign in Eastern Ontario, and it's really important for me today to say thank you to everyone who has donated to the United Way and supported through the United Way agencies of the sort we've heard from Kim and Lana today. So thanks to our panelists, thanks again to Pavna, and thank you everyone for your support. And I hope you have a very good afternoon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.